Hey, it's Jay. I wanted to extend a special thanks to those of you who have listened and left reviews on iTunes for this podcast. Please leave a review if you haven't done so already. We sincerely appreciate it. We're producing this show independently, and unfortunately, that is not free. We have to pay for digital hosting space, software, equipment, websites, and travel out of our own pockets. But we'd love to keep this show going as long as possible. Pledge your support by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. Thanks for your support, and enjoy the show. Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 191. Matt Light, football, bow hunting, tree stand therapy, and the School of Belichick. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Barry Wenzel from Brothers of the Bow and Trophy Whitetail Boot Camps. I'm not really sure what a podcast is, but you're about to push play on what is now my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Dan Infold from HuntingBeast.com. You're about to listen to one of my favorite podcasts, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Laura Zara from Naked and Afraid, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry.
Hey, this is Jay, and I'm just hanging out here in the podcast studios once again, and I'm thinking about you listening on the other side of this device, wherever you are, if you're in your car or you're on your phone. Maybe you're out hunting right now. Maybe you're in a blind somewhere. Maybe you're hunting coyote. I don't know, but I'm just glad you're tuning in. And I've got this other fellow on the other line here with me right now on the other mic, Dusty Phillips. What's going on, Dusty?
Just like you, Jay, hanging out in the studio and getting prepared to record another podcast. And man, thanks everybody for tuning in with us week after week.
Absolutely floored at how many people tune in, and I can't thank you enough, as usual. We are still running our harness program, so if you have a harness you'd like to donate to the cause, we are fresh out of harnesses. They're all spoken for. They've all been sent out, and I've got some people on the list that are still looking for some. So if you are interested in participating in the harness program and you have some spare harnesses left over from your tree stands and you have plenty for yourself already, please shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. I do want to remind everybody that I'm going to be down at the Trinity Church in Concord at the Trinity Sportsman's Expo on April 1st, and I'll be down there all day. I'm looking for people to interview, and I'm lining up some spots. We're going to go live pretty much all day as well, but I'm going to be recording everything. But definitely come down. It's going to be a great event. Lots of good outdoor stuff. If you're in the New Hampshire area, if you're in the Concord area, come down and check out all the vendors. John Clucky's usually down there. Morse's Sporting Goods is usually there. Roscoe Blaisdell and his trophy bucks will be down there. So all the good stuff that you ever wanted in the outdoors. Trinity Sportsman's Expo, April 1st. Dusty, where are you going to be?
No, Holland Deer Turkey Expo is going on today, and I should be there somewhere around noontime, and I'll be in and out. I'm going to the Beef Expo at the State Fairgrounds along with the Deer and Turkey Expo going on at the same time. Same place, staying there.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. This week's guest is somebody that, if you're a football fan, going back to Purdue University, if you're even back in the high school days, you might have heard of this guy, Matt Light, who is a former professional football player with the New England Patriots. He helped to protect Tom Brady. Turns out Matt's a heck of a good hunter. He loves hunting. I mean, this guy is passionate about hunting. And I had heard through the grapevine that he was a hunter, and I called up the PR firm there and got connected with Matt, and he said, yeah, let's do this thing. So Matt tells us his entire life story regarding football, where he's from, how he got into hunting. Then we get into some things about how he transitioned from Ohio to New England hunting. Dusty, which you are familiar with because you've done some of the transition from Ohio to New England, and you understand, so you can relate.
Absolutely, and it's a very unique difference as far as what the terrain looks like from Ohio to Northeast, and it's quite a major adjustment. Mentally, physically, it's all a whole different animal.
It is, and it's a different style hunting where you're at, and I had to adjust too. So, but we're going to get into that with Matt in just a few minutes. But before we turn to Matt, let's turn to Jim Keller with the deer news.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the deer news. Snowmobiler lays claim to 180-inch Illinois buck. This story was originally featured on the Deer and Deer Hunting website and was reported by Carrie Butte. When Caleb Morris of Amboy, Illinois, was launched from his snowmobile on November 20th, 2016 after hitting a hard object buried under the 10 inches of recently fallen snow, it was safe to say he was thrown for a loop. Thankfully, Caleb and his snowmobile were no worse for the wear. When he returned home, Caleb relayed his experience to his father, Ron Morris, telling him that he had no idea what he had run over that caused him to go airborne. 5 days later, Ron, who owns a septic tank cleaning business, was driving his truck through the same field. The field was private property and Morris had permission from the landowner to use it. Out of curiosity and concern that someone might get hurt, he drove to the location his son had described. The snow had melted off slightly, but he could still see the snowmobile tracks. As he got closer, he realized that the object was a buck, a big buck. Ron phoned a stunned Caleb and told him about the discovery. They also knew they needed to report their find. In Illinois, the law requires any person who finds a deer killed by any means to contact a conservation officer before taking possession of the carcass. The exception to this is roadkill deer, in which an individual can simply report the animal online and will be given an appropriate confirmation number that allows the deer to be legally removed from the location and processed. The salvage tag gave Morris legal rights to possess the deer. He is now the lawful owner to use the deer as he chooses. It's worth mentioning, however, that Illinois law prevents the sale of deer antlers found in this manner. While not official, Morris's buck green scored 180 inches and is currently being mounted at a local taxidermist. Game Commission releases deer harvest report. This story was originally featured on the deerfriendly.com website. The following information is from the Pennsylvania Game Commission report, which was released March 13, 2017. Pennsylvania's buck harvest increased 9%, and the overall deer harvest was up 6% in the 2016-17 season, which closes in January, the Pennsylvania Game Commission reported. Hunters harvested an estimated 333,254 deer in 2016-17, an increase of about 6% compared to the 2015 and 16 harvests of 315,813. Of those, 149,460 deer were antlered deer, an increase of about 9% compared to the previous license year, when an estimated 137,580 bucks were taken. It's the largest harvest of antlered deer since 2002. Hunters also harvested an estimated 183,794 antlerless deer in 2016 and 17, which represents about a 3% increase compared to the 178,233 antlerless deer taken in 2015 and 16. Bow hunters accounted for nearly 33% of the overall deer harvest, taking 109,250 deer, that is 59,550 bucks and 49,700 does, with archery tackle. Meanwhile, 20,409 deer, that's 1,350 bucks and 19,059 does, were harvested during muzzleloader season. The percentage of older bucks in the harvest remained high, with 56% of bucks taken by Pennsylvania hunters during the 2016-17 deer seasons being 2.5 years old or older. In 2015-16, 59% of bucks in the harvest were 2.5 years or older. The antlerless harvest included about 64% adult females, about 20% button bucks, and about 16% doe fawns. The rates are similar to long-term averages. Agency staff currently is working to develop a 2017-18 antlerless deer license allocation recommendations, which will be considered at the March 28th meeting of the Board of Game Commissioners. Wayne LaRoche, Game Commission Bureau of Wildlife Management Director, said that in addition to harvest data, staff will be looking at deer health measures, forest regeneration, and deer-human conflicts for each WMU as antlerless locations are considered for 2017-18. Men charged with poaching after a legal Wyoming hunt is featured on television. This story was originally featured on the Oil City News website. The Wyoming Game and Fish Department recently closed a poaching case in Converse County Circuit Court. On March 13, 2017, Ricky J. Mills, 37, and Jimmy G. Duncan, 25, pled no contest to numerous wildlife violations totaling over $30,000 in fines. Mills and Duncan are from Bedford, Kentucky. The case started up with a tip from a concerned Wyoming citizen who watched the two defendants on a hunting show called Hunting in the Sticks that aired on national television. In the episode, Western Redemption, Mills and Duncan are seen harvesting 2 bull elk in Wyoming. The concerned citizen noticed that the area they claimed to have killed their elk did not match the area of their licenses. At the conclusion of the investigation, it was determined that in 2014, while deer hunting in Deer Hunt Area 10 in northern Converse County, Mills and Duncan each killed a mature bull elk on private property. Both men also held elk licenses that same year, but the licenses were valid for Elk Hunt Area 51, which is in extreme northwest Wyoming bordering Yellowstone National Park, not for Elk Hunt Area 113, where they shot the elk. Elk Hunt Area 113 is a highly coveted hunt area with very few licenses. In this hunt area, bulls are only allowed to be harvested every other year. It was also discovered that the two defendants attempted to do the same thing in 2013. Other evidence showed that Duncan harvested an antelope buck in September 2013 without a license. The two were also charged with waste of big game animals in connection with the 2 illegally harvested elk, along with a small game violation. Ricky Mills was sentenced to pay $7,460 in fines, $6,000 in restitution for the bull elk he killed, and $240 in court costs, and lost his hunting privileges for 15 years. Mills will be entered into the Wildlife Violator Compact, which will prevent him from hunting and trapping in 43 participating states. Jimmy Duncan was sentenced to pay $7,500 in fines, $6,000 in restitution for the bull elk he killed, $4,000 in restitution for the antelope in 2013, and $240 in court costs. He was also suspended for 15 years from hunting and trapping and will be entered into the Wildlife Violator Compact. The elk mounts from both Duncan and Mills were forfeited to the Game and Fish. I believe the two defendants were driven to get kill shot footage for the television show, and that resulted in their making bad decisions, added Mike Ellerbrock, investigative supervisor for the Wyoming Game and Fish. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller with the Deer News. Without further ado, here's Matt Light.
Matt Light, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. That's a good answer, because this is a voyage here, and you don't necessarily know where we're going to take you.
Well, listen, and when you don't have anything good to say, you just say what somebody else has said, and I've heard that too many times, and I figured it's either that or I'm working on something great, and I can't say that because I haven't done anything good in a number of years. So I'm hanging in there, my friend. I'm doing well.
Very cool. And as a professional athlete, I'm sure you've been in front of the media and the microphones enough where you kind of have a script to read, or you memorize the script where you never say anything bad, but you never actually say anything either. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's the Bill Belichick School of Broadcasting, and you basically only talk about yourself when you have to talk about yourself. And when something gets tough, you just say, well, ask Bill. If you ask something difficult, I'm just going to tell you to ask Bill.
All right. You're still a patriot through and through.
Drinking a plate.
Very nice. It kind of reminds me of the whole Bull Durham scene in the movie where they actually go over the script that they have to do on the bus.
Yeah, well, I try to toe the company line on a regular basis, but when you did slip up in my world, Belichick had a creative way of calling you out in front of all your teammates. You never wanted to be on, the what we're not looking for highlight reel on a Monday morning or any morning for that matter. Right. So I tried to keep it pretty basic,
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. I want to say thank you for doing the promotion that you did when you were raising some money pre-Super Bowl. When you did the little promo for the Big Buck Registry, it came out real well, and we posted it on our site, and we drove as many people to the raffle as we could.
Well, we appreciate that, man. That was a great time. I mean, if you're a football fan or you're somebody that just tunes in for the playoffs, I mean, if you didn't get your money's worth if it wasn't worth your time this year, it won't ever be worth your time. I mean, it was the greatest playoff run, not just for Patriot fans, but really, honestly, the NFL had a great postseason, and obviously what these guys did here in New England was nothing short of incredible, amazing, crazy, best game I've ever seen. So for us to be able to capitalize for the Life Foundation and raise some money, it was a big win for us as well. And you guys, definitely were a part of that and helping spread the word. And we had some great people that won the opportunity to go down there to Houston and be at the game and take part in all those festivities. And while they probably thought it was a worthless trip at about 12 minutes left in the game, it was worth their time when it was all said and done, that's for sure.
What was the feeling like on the sideline in that fourth quarter?
Man, I tell you, for those guys, I mean, I went down to Houston with my wife, and we were down there having some fun, and just to watch that game was incredible. But for those guys, when you're in a moment like that, it's not something that you can, really articulate. You can't properly describe it. You're in a moment. It's almost like you could almost equate it to times when you're hunting, when you just have one of those moments where everything falls in place, It doesn't happen very often. You can't really, you can go back and kind of relive it in your head, but it's hard to fully describe the feelings and everything else. And those guys, they did the impossible, literally did the impossible. They did what no team has ever done before in a lot of different ways. And, for them, I know that they'll be able to look. I mean, anytime you win a championship, you can relive those moments for the rest of your life. But that one is going to be just absolutely incredible. When those guys are, 25, 35 years from now, it'll be as cool and amazing and exciting as it was, a month or so ago.
Absolutely phenomenal Super Bowl. I just, as half of America was doing at that time, sitting somewhere on a couch watching it all unfold. And I said to a buddy, if anybody can come back from this, the Patriots can. This is the one team that can probably do that. And I just never stopped watching. I never threw in the towel or listened to any of my buddies sending negative connotations through my head. I didn't know what would happen, but I didn't count them out. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, and I think that's, as a player that, I never ever looked at, hey, we're done. This is over. I mean, I got a job to do. I'm going to go out there. I don't care if we're down 1,000. We're going to go out. We're going to execute at a high level, to the highest level that we can. Typically when things go bad, you do everything you can to correct it. And yeah, you may climb back. I mean, how many times have you watched a game where, it was just an ugly game, but if you only knew the score, you'd say, oh, wow, that must have been a good game. And right. You talk to the guy the next day and he's like, man, they crushed them. And you're like, huh, all right. So as we always said in football, it's never as good as it seems and it's never as bad as it seems. That game encompasses that whole mentality all in one, on both ends of the spectrum.
It really does. Absolutely phenomenal game. So you spent some time in New England, obviously, Matt. Where did you grow up and where do you call home now?
I stayed here in New England for the most part of every year since I retired. So I spent 11 seasons playing for the Patriots from 2001 to 2012 and, had a great time and got to really know the Northeast and took advantage of everything there is to do out here in the Northeast, which is not the easiest thing to realize when you first get here, but once you're here for a while, it definitely grows on you. So I've got 4 kids and, my wife and I decided this is the best place to keep them and not upset the apple cart there with them and disrupt their education and everything else. So we're still in Foxborough, Mass. And,
okay.
We love it here and we've been here for, 16 years now and it's home for most of the year. But I grew up in Darke County, Ohio, which is west central Ohio. Grew up, real close to the Indiana border. Actually, my farm now is right on the Indiana border and just outside the town of Greenville. And man, it's a small farming community like a lot of that area of Ohio is, and a lot of tillable ground, a lot of wide open fields, about as good a contrast as you could get from the Northeast. I know Dusty's, been in my neck of the woods, and being an Ohio boy, it's definitely difficult to relate to this part of the country when you first get here, because it is, like you said, the biggest field we have in New England is a football field.
That's true. That is so true, man.
Most of the wide open spaces out here, a decent quarterback could chuck it from one end to the other. You just don't have the open space,
right?
Which is in direct, a contrast to everything that is the Midwest. Our woods are postage stamps. There's
right.
Little corridors here and there, and the hunting, along with pretty much everything else, the way of life and the pace of life and everything else. It's just completely different. So, man, I loved it though. I grew up in a family that was rooted in the outdoors, and I'd never seen a football game until I had no idea that Purdue, where I ended up playing college football, was in the Big Ten. I had no idea that the New England Patriots were located in Massachusetts. I'd never seen a college or professional football game until I played in them. So I didn't grow up, idolizing the game or, looking up to certain players. I played the game of football because I didn't go to jail when I hit somebody. So it was man, I truly love the game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting it. And I learned a lot when I got to New England and became a big part of my life. But, growing up where I did, man, it was the outdoors, 100%, not 90%, but 100. And I played football because I like to hit people, and I threw the discus because they let me go out there and only throw the discus and then, take off and not do anything else. And that was my sports, man. I mean, that was it. I didn't play basketball. I didn't wrestle because, that came at the wrong time of the year,
Right. I totally understand. Absolutely. So what was the household like, and what was high school? What was your daily routine back then?
You know what, man? I had I had a very tight-knit family. My stories growing up were, being around my dad, who's one of the best storytellers on earth. And, he had two older brothers, and, my Uncle Dick was a guy that I looked up to. It was actually my great uncle. He was a big-time veterinarian in a small town, much smaller than one I grew up in New Madison, Ohio. And, being down on their farm and the family farms and, baling a lot of hay and, hard work. And, man, I poured concrete growing up. I worked for every farmer. My mom, I think she just, got tired of dealing with me, man. She'd farm me out to work for everybody. But it was great, man. And, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my uncle, they all wrote the outdoors column in our local paper. Very cool. And just, I can remember my Uncle Bob, my dad's oldest brother, who was writing a column at the time. He would take me out, and then we'd do some hunt. We'd go squirrel hunting, or we'd rabbit hunt, or we'd go fishing, and he would write a story about it, and I get to see my name in the paper. And, it was an unbelievable, looking back on it, man, I was very blessed and very fortunate to have, the kind of family and the upbringing that I had. And, they definitely paid for, my mistakes at times, but they never, I guess they never kicked me out completely. So God love them for that.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. So working on farms and we're pouring concrete, and that's a job for a strong person. You cannot be a weak person and do those jobs. So if you're like Dusty, and Dusty's one of the strongest people I ever met. He can pick me up with one arm, and I'm no small guy. I go 240. But so did strength come naturally to you growing up? Or were you one of those late bloomers?
I think I was always able to apply my strength. I graduated high school at like 220, 230, which, wasn't overly big. I ended up, playing tight end at Purdue for some unknown reason. I didn't have an athletic bone in my body, but, started my true freshman year and then swallowed a couch and ended up being an offensive lineman and weighing 320 when I put on basically 100 pounds in college. So,
gotcha.
But I would say strength for me was always, I was always good at applying it and using, mechanics and technique and all that kind of stuff. And I was aggressive. I think that's part of what I see today when I work with young kids. If they've got ability, that's one thing. But if they know how to apply that ability and they're good at how they attack the game and they're aggressive, which, unfortunately, we're trying to breed aggression out of people in this country because we got numbnuts that are running things. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But, aggression is good. You just got to apply it in the right direction, and you got to have, good examples. And that's where the game of football really, was a blessing for me. And, but yeah, it didn't hurt that, I was outdoors every day and I like to pick things up and put them down.
Gotcha. All right. Very nice. What's your first recollection of a hunting experience growing up?
I'd say all the small game stuff is what I go to immediately. I was given the order that, when I was real little that, I can't go around plucking off any old bird. I could take the common sparrow because that sucker, came over here on a boat and, he didn't deserve, all the space and what he was eating up. But if I touched any of those other birds, I was in trouble. So I honed my skills like every other young man, with a pellet and BB gun, and that never ever shot in the same place twice, and grew up doing all the goofy things like that. And I can remember at an early age, the first shot at going out and chasing some squirrels. And I got cousins of mine that got some of the best squirrel dogs in the country. And I mean, running coyotes with dogs and rabbit, all the small game stuff and predator stuff. That was really, I think, and especially for kids. I mean, I got my kids. I mean, that's what kept your attention, and always enjoyed that.
Let's talk about football a little bit more. You played for the New England Patriots, and strength was your friend, and sound like you like to be aggressive in high school. What was the high school football experience like?
Well, I honestly couldn't tell you how many games we won, but I don't know that. Maybe we got over the double digits for my entire high school career, but I'm not 100% sure. We definitely weren't in the powerhouse category.
Okay.
But we had a lot of guys, man, that just, loved to play. And man, I enjoyed my high school years. I mean, it was, we had some great rivalries with some of the surrounding towns. And I had some guys that, we started playing in Pee Wee football when I was always a year behind everybody. I graduated at 17. So, I was 7 years old, suiting it up. And from 7 until I, graduated at 17, man, I had pretty much the same cast of characters around me. So, we have a lot of great memories and a lot of good moments that we shared out there in the field. And probably one that I'll never forget, but probably should, is I got ejected from a game and had to drive there with my old man to see the next game. Wasn't allowed to play in it and had to buy a ticket. That was like a low level in my life, to have to go and sit there and watch my guys. It was the only time I missed a game. So, so the aggression wasn't always applied in the right form or direction, but
right.
Definitely some good memories.
Part of your formidable years where you had to learn about life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Now, you went from high school to Purdue, and how did that all occur? What was the recruiting process like, and how did you decide to go there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild time. I mean, to be real honest, I had no idea that they would pay for, I didn't know that scholarships existed in sports. I mean, I heard people talk about academic scholarships, and my sister was an overachiever and, honor society and all that stuff,
Sure.
Always getting all the attention. But she definitely got some help when she graduated. She graduated 3 years ahead of me, but I never understood that, again, because I didn't watch any sports. So I started receiving letters, had my coach come and tell me, hey, there's some guys talking about you. They were watching tape on some of our rivals and some of the guys that we played against that were real athletic and ended up going on and playing in some various colleges. So, I got lucky and got a look, and they saw my frame and basically said, hey, we could work with that. And it was a very interesting time for me and my family. Again, when I was looking at schools, I had no idea to base it on, how good they were with their sports and their football program. I was looking at it, purely saying, wow, they're going to pay for my school. Let's get the best we can. And so I went to Purdue based on the fact that, I had a great visit there. I went to University of Kentucky. That was a fun trip. Went to Penn State. That was a fun trip. You're allowed 3 official visits, or at least you were back then. And Purdue was my third. And I really liked the staff. It was a great, great size. I mean, it's a big university, but it's a smaller town. And, it was an engineering program there. My father's an engineer. And, so I just figured that you can't go wrong with a school. And, the people were nice. And, man, ended up being, a great decision.
Gotcha. Very cool. Do you have a memory on the football field back at Purdue that sticks out more than others?
Yeah, I mean, we beat Ohio State, and I always loved beating Ohio State. I mean, and it wasn't anything personal because, again, I always heard about Ohio State and heard all my buddies always talking about it.
Sure. And
definitely ended up on High Street a time or two, which is, at the library, of course, the best bar on campus when I was growing up. Somehow managed to get there every now and then. But, I didn't like Ohio State because when I was in high school, right before my senior year, I went to a camp there, and I'll never forget Cooper telling me, well, we like you, and you won some awards here at this camp, but you'd have to work a lot harder to make it in this program. And it was a very cocky, I'm not that kind of guy, but it was a very cocky, kind of in your face, we're the Ohio State.
Right.
And, it just rubbed me the wrong way. So, when we beat them my senior year and, we ended up going to the Rose Bowl and the way we beat them and how we came back in that game. And it was a hell of a game. I'll never forget that one. I mean, that was Drew Brees at his finest. That was our team and the swagger and how we took the field and how we attacked that season. It was a great year.
Very nice.
And that was a good game.
Yeah, that sounds like a heck of a moment for sure on the football field. Wow. All right, so if getting recruited to Purdue wasn't crazy enough for your family, I'm sure being drafted from Purdue to go play in the NFL must have been even crazier. Can you describe that?
Yeah. Well, again, I didn't have a thought in my mind about going and playing in the NFL. And it probably sounds crazy that I'm even saying that, but I focus on what's right in front of me, and I don't know. I got blinders on. I'm like that horse on a track, just keep whipping me and I'll keep running. But I literally, it wasn't until, just before my last year, we were playing in the Outback Bowl of the year before. And, we're down there in Tampa and there's a lot of agents floating around. And I had some guys, they're not supposed to make contact with you, but they always do. And I had some guys tell me all kind of things, come out early, do this, do that. And I'm like, wow, there's definitely an interest, So when it became draft day, for me and going through the process and at that point having, done the combine and everything else, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know to what degree or what round or didn't have a clue on that end of it, but we rented out the local watering hole there on Purdue's campus and we were at the Neon Cactus, man, and it was a good old country bar there. It's one of the best, bar scenes there at Purdue, and we had it all rented out and there was, I think 3 or 4 of us that were drafted that year, and man, it was a great time. It was one of my best memories being around all those guys and the seasons that we had at Purdue, and then knowing that we were going to continue to play the game of football. And I just graduated in December, got my degree, so it was a good way to close one door and walk in through another one and get an opportunity to do what I love doing.
Gotcha. And when you heard your name being called, what thoughts ran through your head?
Yeah, I was on the phone with Scott Pioli, who is the director of player personnel here in New England, and just a phenomenal person. And he's telling me, hey, we're getting ready to, you're going to see your name come across the screen. And he also was the guy that told me to hang up with the Jets, who were on the other line. And I didn't know what that rivalry was. I had no idea that they didn't like each other. I was oblivious to all of it. So I'm like, all right, I guess you're going to take me. So, man, it was I'll never forget my buddy coming up to me and telling me what the guy that got drafted the year before made at my pick. And I remember thinking, that can't be right. These people are idiots if they're going to pay me that much. So, I've been fortunate, man. I've been blessed in every way. And like I said, it was never something that I thought would happen or look forward to happening or, any of that stuff. It's just something that happened. And, man, I'm damn thankful. And I ended up in a pretty damn good spot too.
Right. Definitely. What was it like meeting the team or even Belichick for the first time, walking on for day one? What was day one like?
Yeah, day one was crazy. Foxborough's come so far, in so many ways, from a sports standpoint to just a way of life and the town itself. And I remember getting to Foxborough and thinking, man, this can't be what an NFL team is all about. The old Foxborough Stadium was worse than a lot of shoot, Dusty, what the schools are like in Ohio that worship football.
Oh, yeah.
Those stadiums in Ohio for a lot of high school teams were far, far better than what we had in Foxborough in 2001.
Right.
So, when I got here, I'm staying at the End Zone Motel. It's like where every trucker stops, and whatever women of the night, were in the area, definitely swung through there. It was just a dark, nasty place, and it was strange. I remember meeting Bledsoe for the first time and being around some of the other guys and the Willie McGinnis of the world and all the guys that were here at that time, and just thinking, man, I got a lot of work to do because I don't look like them and I don't move like they. I had an uphill battle, but I was in some ways fortunate because I got thrown into the fire, and Bruce Armstrong had just retired, and heck, he was here for 13, 14 seasons, whatever it was he anchored the left tackle position for forever and was an incredible player. And, I had to fill his shoes and I kind of had to learn on the fly, and man, it ended up being a great way to enter the league,
Yeah.
Yeah, if my research is correct, you played like 155 games and started 153.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, I've had 15 major surgeries, and none of them were easy. And I guess most of them came in the off season, so I didn't miss too much, which was nice. So yeah, and they were fun games too. I mean, they weren't all, we don't celebrate a whole lot in New England if you've ever seen a press conference with our head coach, but we did have fun.
Gotcha. So I went to a few games in the 80s to the old, was it Schaefer Stadium at the time? And it was rough. I understand what you're saying. It was rough sitting through the game. It wasn't that comfortable. It smelled like bad, stale beer most of the time. And not that it doesn't have a unique aroma now, but it was definitely, that old 70s feel going all the way through the 80s. And if it weren't, the Squish the Fish year was great, even though, they faced the dominant Bears in the Super Bowl. I always had good memories going with my dad, but the team just wasn't there. If we made the playoffs, we were excited, basically, for years and years and years. And then your first year there, I was actually at the Super Bowl in New Orleans and saw that all go down. And it just blew my mind. Like, we actually won. How did we do that? After that first year, what was the mentality at that point? Was there expectation to do better and win constantly from then on? Or was it just do your work, do your job, as we hear constantly on the media?
Well, the expectations never change. From one season to the next, we had as good a continuity as there's probably ever been in the National Football League in terms of coaching, staff, and personnel folks, and obviously ownership has been the same for quite some time. And when you have a situation like that, and you've got a group that's that committed to doing the job that they have to do, and they don't ever take a day off. Your goals are always the same, to go to and win the Super Bowl, and how you do it changes from one season to the next. It changes from 1 week to the next, depending on who's up and who's down and how things are going and who you're playing against and how you're game planning and all those things. But, our expectations were always very, very high. And New England is a place that if you're a free agent, again, I never experienced that and was fortunate enough to spend my whole career here. But if you came in from off the street, or you were a guy that had been in another organization, you figured it out pretty quickly that you're going to be called upon to do a lot. And it was probably going to be a lot more than what you did elsewhere. And you had to do it every time that you got out there, whether it was practice or in a game, and they were going to hold you accountable. And it wasn't going to be an easy place to play. But if you did those things, you were guaranteed a chance to win. And that may not sound like a whole lot, but there's a lot of teams that know going into every contest, they don't have much of a chance to win.
Right. Gotcha. What was your biggest lesson that you learned about life playing under that program?
Oh man, a little bit of everything. I think one of the things though that has always stuck with me and was more apparent as I got older, and definitely in retirement is ringing true, is the fact that you got to have pain in life. And unfortunately, if you look at the opposite end of the spectrum, you take somebody that hasn't put a whole lot of work into things, whether it's their work life, personal life, whatever it may be. They don't do the little things right. They don't put the attention to detail into all the things that need it, right? People that have never achieved, and you don't have to achieve a Super Bowl, but you got to be able to lead your family, or lead your own life, or lead your work group or something. If you've never done those things, it's probably because you never experienced pain. We got too many people that live on easy street in terms of look, they're not held accountable. They're spoon-fed, a lot of misinformation, and they really don't care to get up and do things the hard way. And because of that, they've never fallen flat, and they've never had to pick themselves up. They've never had to work through adversity. If you had to rehab an injury and come back from it and throw yourself right back in the fire, you learn something about yourself. And I think that that's the lesson that football especially, but sports in general, has taught me in my life. I know that if I never did those things, I would have never realized what we're all really capable of. And the truth is we all have it, and that's the beauty of it all. But you can't talk yourself into it. You kind of got to live it.
Right. Gotcha. What was your high point playing for the Patriots?
post-surgery with some No, I'm just kidding. No, I only say that because I'm about a week post-surgery from my my fourth shoulder surgery.
Oh, wow.
And only reason I had it operated on because I got to be able to pull my bow. But
that's important, man. Yeah, we got to have priorities.
You damn straight you do. But and don't mess with those. I tell you what, you get a surgery, just tell them you don't want nothing. Deal with the pain. It's a hell of a lot better than that junk. So,
right.
I don't know what my best moment was as a player.
How about a low point? Was there a time when you felt like things were just collapsing around you?
Yeah, when you're coming back from some of those, I talk a lot about injuries. I've had a lot and had to battle a lot of things, and you learn a lot about yourself, and you got to do those things for sure. And man, there were some dark moments, coming back from things and wondering if I could come back. And I've suffered from some other stuff, Crohn's disease and this, that, and the other, and that's not an easy thing to have for anybody. And definitely when you're playing, it makes things a little bit trickier. And so yeah, but man, I guess I look back on it and I say that for all the tough moments, they were all worth it, right? And I'll never be able to duplicate those experiences that I had. So they're life changing. And for me, the highest moments in playing the game of football were really the things that happened off the field with some of the best teammates any guy could ever ask for. And I played with some of the best that have ever played the game, and
right.
Guys like Junior Seau, who he's no longer with us, and we all missed the hell out of him, but he was a legit one of a kind, and there was a lot of guys like him that I was fortunate enough to be around.
Gotcha. Yep. Very cool. All right, let's talk about Tom Brady for a second. How does he keep going? I mean, how old is he now? He's going to be getting into close to 40, right?
Oh yeah, he'll be 40 here pretty soon.
How does he keep going with the longevity that he does? He talks about his diet, but I would think that it has something to do with the great protection he got from some of his teammates along the way.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to keep it real to start with here. If the guy got hit an average of 5 times a game, I would say that that's probably fair.
Yeah.
Right. So I've gotten hit by 5 different people on one play. So
it's true.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, but I will say this. So number one, quarterbacks can do what quarterbacks do. Right.
Right.
They're the only player on the field if you're running the offense the right way that can literally do what they do. Right. So if you do have some decent protection, it's never going to be perfect. It never is perfect. But if all things are equal, and you got a good program, you got a good offense, they should be able to do that for quite a while. That said, I've seen that guy play through things that most of my teammates wouldn't play through. So he is a tough SOB, and you got to love him for that. And he's obsessed with his career and in a great way. I mean, but he is truly a football guy through and through in every way. So that doesn't happen very often. I mean, you can have a guy that loves playing the game because he loves to run into a wall. You can have a guy that loves to play the game because he loves the matchups and the chess match and everything that is strategic about it. You can have a lot of guys that play the game for a lot of reasons. This guy plays them for all the reasons.
Right. Gotcha. Did he ever take you out to dinner for doing such a great job in a game or two or a season?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All the time, right?
Yeah, we shared a lot of good, meals, and his credit card always went through, so we were pretty happy about that one.
Very cool, very cool. Just a phenomenal career playing with the Patriots, and I was trying to explain to my son today, and we were talking about all the trades that have happened over the last couple of weeks here, and specifically in the Patriots, and I was trying to explain to him that he wanted to understand why are we losing potentially some of the players that have been here for a few of the Super Bowls. And I said, you have to understand, like, you have a small window in life to play at a very high level, and you never know what's going to happen next. You don't know if you're going to feel an injury. You don't know if that injury might cause you to not be able to play any further. And because of that, there's this thing called free agency, and you have to take that opportunity. As much as you love that player, as much as you want that player to come back as a fan, as a player, you have to take advantage of that opportunity because you don't know if that opportunity is going to be around for a very long time. 10 years is a long time. So you have to make your money when you can. And then it kind of clicked in his head. But you had a fantastic career. You were there for 10 years and played on some of the best teams in NFL history. Really.
Yeah, and I'm not going to correct you ever again, but it was 11, just because the last one hurt. But I'm just kidding. No, gotcha. But it was, yeah, man. I was, again. I mean, I would have never written the script the way it ended up playing out, right. And to have had that time in my life and for my family, man, you did not see a TV on much of my home. And if it was, it sure as heck wasn't on football. But now, they're like football junkies. They know more about the damn game than I do. I can tell you that much.
Right. So
it's really changed all of our lives, and it's afforded me things that I never thought possible. And I'm the luckiest guy in the world for that.
I apologize for not doing my math correctly. You're absolutely correct. He did play for 11 years, not 10. Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about your post career, your post football career. You retired from the NFL and the Patriots, and now you've got some other things going on in your life. So, what happens in a life after football? What did you decide you wanted to do?
Well, a lot. Playing the game, you get so many opportunities to meet so many interesting people, and for me, not being a football guy, when I left the stadium, of course, you got to remember we were there from 6 a.m. until at least 6 p.m., if not 8 p.m. on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I mean, those were heavy days for us. So you're consumed by the game when you're playing it and when you're there. But when I wasn't in a stadium, I never thought about football. So I've always been able to compartmentalize. And in the off season, I try to cram everything in that I possibly could. And, the NFL had some great programming. They would pay for you to go to school and further your education. And I took advantage of all that stuff. And, never walked back into the engineering realm, but definitely was able to take some business courses and figured out that I really enjoyed doing certain things and made some great contacts and developed a network. And so by the time, I got to my 10th season, I was on the executive committee and a player rep and, working with the union and trying to figure some things out and trying to get a new collective bargaining agreement done. And I'm sitting there working on it. And I was I was done after 10 years, but there's two things that happened. One, I had to go to all these damn meetings for this CBA and trying to get this lockout taken care of. And I figured, by hell, I wasted so much of my time. And I got a great story about that we can talk about later, but I wasted so much of my time, trying to work through this thing that I might as well come back and take advantage of some of the new rules, which I sound like the guy that talks about going to school uphill both ways in his socks. But I mean, hell, if the game was played in 2001 the way it was in 2011 and is played today still, I could play for 100 years. But that said, I mean, it's a cakewalk today. There is no such thing as two-a-days. You do not put pads on twice in one day, period. You don't hit 2 days in a row. It's the easiest cakewalk on earth. But I figured I fought through all that. We got that accomplished. I might as well go back and play. And the overwhelming thing was there was this guy, he's about 6'7", ran like a deer, and was the most fun person on earth. And his name's Rob. They're all numbnuts and they're all out of their minds. But the Gronkowskis,
yes,
have brought joy to many people's lives. And whether it's Gordy or Dan or Rob, I mean, Gordy Sr., those guys are all amazing people. So I had to come back and play with Rob, one more year. And I was glad I did. And it ended up being a great season.
He looks like he's just full of energy. We obviously don't get to see as much of the players as the players do, but it just from afar through the media looks like it'd be a good time, like just kind of hanging out and always laughing.
That doesn't get any better. Yeah, it's full tilt.
Gotcha. Tell me about the Matt Light Foundation and when did that come into play into your life, and why did you decide to start that?
Yeah, again, going back to my family and growing up, and my grandmother used to tell me I may be the only person that loves you right now, but at least one of us has got your back, and to whom much is given, much is required, and all those kind of lessons that I grew up with. When I got drafted, it was an overwhelming sense of just disbelief. I mean, it was almost too much. So I just I remember sitting down, talking to my wife, talking to my parents and everybody else, and we decided to form the Light Foundation in 2001, just after my draft and all that stuff. And we put the wheels in motion then. And we didn't have a clear objective in terms of, how we were going to do what we were going to do. But we knew we wanted to do things to give back and to be a part of the communities in which I played or grew up. And, so it started out as kind of a throughway. We'd host an event, we'd raise some money, and we'd find a worthy nonprofit. But I quickly realized that, how some people did things wasn't on par with how I felt like they should be done. And maybe there were times that we gave money and the expectations weren't met, on our end and in terms of what we thought they were going to do with this. So after about 3 or 4 years, we decided to, create our own programming and put our own facility together. And where we are today, is just really, it's the ultimate highlight in my life. And we're sitting on close to 600 acres, and we got an outdoor camp for kids where we go through, team building and life lessons and leadership skills. And we have fun through, other various events, whether it's football camps or scholarship programs. I mean, you name it, we do it. And, this past year we had close to 5,000 kids go through Chinook Trails, which is our facility,
wow,
right there on the Indiana border, just down Dusty from Winter's Meats. And, we got a great thing going in terms of, we've got the best staff in the world. We've got, some amazing kids that have come through our programs, and we've got unbelievable volunteers. And really, look, there's a lot of things that we do. At the end of the day, we really enjoy working with young people, and there's a lot of kids in this world that, need somebody just stop and talk to them, and tell them, hey man, you're screwing up, and hold them accountable and push them to do things, outside their comfort zone, and just lend an ear, and that's what we do. And like I said, man, we got incredible staff. It's a little overwhelming to try to get into because we got a lot of different buckets that we fill within the foundation, but at mattlight72.com, which sounds really self-serving, but these marketing people say you got to do stuff like that. But if you go to that website, there's a ton of information, man. And we got a youth wild turkey hunt coming up here in April that we've been doing now for a long time, and I can't wait for that. We got our leadership camps coming up. We got leadership conferences. I mean, we do a lot throughout the year, and it's always fun. It's always exciting.
Gotcha. What are some of the profiles of the kids that you help out? Well,
in the programs that I'm, that we've had the longest and that I love the most, I mean, they're all great. Don't get me wrong, but there's some that I get involved with, from start to finish, and in those programs, the real meat and potatoes and the kind of kids that we work with are the kids that, and again, I'm not a clinician. I didn't go to school for this, but I call them knuckleheads because I was one, and I know how to clearly define that. I know what it looks like, and I know what it sounds like. So, they're the kid that I said, man, they may have set the house on fire, but they didn't burn it all the way down. Yeah. So I don't want the kid that wants the house to burn. They need more help than I can give them, but I want that one that the teacher says, Johnny's been making a lot of bad mistakes. He's got a lot of ground to make up, but he's not a bad kid. He just needs some guidance. Those are the kind of kids we work with. A lot of those kids are inner city kids from single parent, homes that, they just, and unfortunately, they just don't have people around them in their lives that hold them accountable and can push them to do some of the things that they're highly capable of.
Gotcha. All right. Very, very nice. Tell me about this fundraiser coming up called Fool's Night Out. What's that all about?
Well, we're celebrating the greatest holiday of the year, and I've always been a bit of a practical joker. Although, I get blamed for a lot of things I didn't do or that haven't been proven. And we have this event coming up on April Fool's Day, which is April the 1st. Okay,
yes, sir. Yes, it is.
It's the like I said, best holiday on earth. And we bring in all these comedians. I mean, some of the best comedians you'll ever hear. And of course, Boston area, the New England area is just rich in comedy. Some of the best comics on earth,
right,
have come from this area. So we have an all-star lineup every year. And then I'll mix in some shenanigans that took place in the locker room or some film of some stuff that we've done and, pulling some pranks and this, that, and the other. So it's a great event. We, all the money goes into the Light Foundation, and we do it right next to the stadium at Showcase Live. And man, it's a fun event, April 1st. And if you're in the New England area or you want to fly in, it's a Saturday this year, which is great. So it's going to be a heck of a night.
That sounds like a good time, definitely. And you're right, there are a lot of comedians in New England, that's for sure, and professional ones too. So that's nice. So Matt, when I I had heard through the grapevine that you were a hunter, and I decided to do a Google search for you one time, and I came across your firm that handles a lot of your media connections, and I talked to a nice lady by the name of Amanda, and I said to Amanda, hey, I hear Matt's a hunter, and she goes, oh, yes, he's a hunter. He hunts every day, and he hunts everything, all the time. So I said, well, that sounds like our kind of guy that we want to have on our show. So I reached out, and you said, absolutely, we'd love to join you, and we did some of the raffle stuff. But I'd like to transition into some hunting now. We've learned a lot about you, but I want to hear about your hunting. I want to figure out where you hunt, how you hunt, what skills you've adapted. Clearly, you've come, there's a style of hunting in Ohio that might not be applicable in New England, where you it sounds like you do a lot of your hunting now, but I would imagine you get out into some of the other places. Let's go through some of your hunting stuff.
Sounds good.
I'm going to get into just how you transition from hunting Ohio to New Hampshire, Matt. Just because I've been to New Hampshire on 3 hunts now for about a week at a time, and turkey season's phenomenal in New Hampshire, but it's a different animal versus Ohio. So what do you do to adjust when you go from hunting the field edges to the small timber, from that to the big woods? What was your biggest adjustment there?
Understand it. I mean, and specifically, whitetails, which, I hear it all the time, and I'm open to anything, but definitely the toughest animal on earth to hunt, right? I mean, I'd say that's arguable, but there's been too many people that are far more intelligent than me in the outdoors that have said it for a lot of years now, going back to Fred Bear, and you can name all the rest of them. But if you use that as the baseline, when we're talking about hunting a certain area, there is a real learning curve going from the Midwest to probably anywhere else that's not Midwest related, right? And coming to the Northeast, the thing that is extremely frustrating is figuring out how to pattern, or understanding that there is a lack of pattern based on your previous knowledge in the Midwest on deer here in the Northeast. It just doesn't happen much like it did in Ohio in the Northeast. So that was a very difficult transition. But I would say this, that I relied 100% almost in the early years on the people that grew up here, and that's how I learned to figure things out in this area.
That makes complete sense. Now, let me ask you about the navigation part of it. I'm pretty savvy in Ohio woods, but Ohio woods is nothing compared to the Northeast. As far as being knowledgeable about direction and where you've traveled and how far you've gone and getting back to the truck, is that something you ran into trouble when you got out there as far as the navigation part of it?
Yeah, and it started out driving on the damn highways. I mean, you're on 465 north going straight east for like 60 miles. I mean, it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, everything's a cart path. Everything is you head every direction like 100 times, but you're only going one direction. It's definitely confusing. I would say this, though. The one time that I damn near gave up and just said, screw it, I'm sleeping, and I'll wake up and figure it out tomorrow, was down in Kentucky. You get down to some of those draws and some of those, damn valleys that you drop into and those fingers and all that stuff, man. But yeah, it's very confusing when you get to the Northeast, when you try to figure things out and there's big timber, there's big sections of woods, and you got bogs, you got a little bit of everything out here, which is not what I expected, but is something that I've come to really appreciate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree to that comment anymore there. That it's amazing. One, for how beautiful the Northeast is. That's its phenomenal scenery. Coming from Ohio, when we talk about big bucks here versus big bucks there, what did you have to adjust mentally to prep yourself to be able to shoot a 130-inch deer, 140-inch deer as a trophy whitetail?
Well, look, you got, for me, the last 5 years is a different chapter since I retired. When I played, I would literally go up. I mean, I can remember getting home at 4 a.m. from a Monday night game in Miami, and Bill would allow me to get in my car, which never happened at the airport because I'd have somebody take my car down there, and I'd go from the airport because I told him I needed it for therapy. But I'd go directly from the airport to the tree stand, get there, just before sun up, and I'd be falling asleep, dying, all stiff and beat up from the day before, the night before. And, that would be my one time I got to hunt. I mean, we only had one off day, and there was no time to ever be in a stand outside that. So my opportunities were very few between during most of my, all of my career here in New England. But, when you talk about hunting big deer out here, I mean, the thing you got to remember is the density, the deer density. I don't care where you're at. There are places where it's definitely higher. But for the most part, you really got to get on some good ground and get kind of lucky to gobble up some areas where you can really hunt it, and you got to put your time in like you do everything else, but you got to be prepared to just not see a whole lot. And the rut is a little bit different, in terms of, these dudes will cover some ground now. I mean, I feel like on my farm in Ohio that I can kind of, once you get these deer pattern and once you can kind of get an idea of what some of these dudes are doing, 4 out of, I don't know, 4 out of 10, maybe you may get a glimpse on him. He may not be within shooting distance, but you're probably going to see his ass, but that doesn't happen out here, man. These acorns fall on every square inch of this ground. There's browse everywhere you look, whenever you're trying to hunt these suckers, unless it's late season, and they do not do a lot of times what you think they're going to do.
How long did it take you to figure out that the deer movement and activity is completely different from Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, that my morning hunts in the Northeast are a heck of a lot better than what I experienced back home. But you know what, though? I look at deer movement and deer activity, and I say that, man, while you hear a lot of the same, I'm not convinced yet that I think it's just based on you, like some guys are lucky, some guys aren't, you know what I mean? But it's definitely different out here. I know for a fact that my morning hunts here in the Northeast are a heck of a lot better than anything I would have in Ohio.
Gotcha. And you think that plays a role because of the browse and the food that's there available in all directions?
Yeah, and I think that the amount of cover that they've got in areas that allows them to kind of, maybe feel a little bit more secure, or maybe, their travel corridors, they can duck in and out so well. And, if you do bump some deer, they kind of feel a little bit more comfortable to come walking through an area because it's, they've got so many travel. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but, again, I would say this, though, there are some really, really good deer in the Northeast. You're just not going to see the same number, of course.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. The numbers are not there. So let's get into a little bit about what's your favorite hunting style? Is it bow hunting, gun hunting? What do you prefer to hunt with?
I have never gotten much satisfaction with anything other than my bow. I don't get nearly as wound up even with a crossbow. It's for me, I'm going to take stick and string 99 out of 100 times. And there have been a few times where I've fallen guilty to, grabbing the smoke pole or, man, very, very rarely, a shotgun. But I just don't hunt those. I mean, I hunt those seasons, don't get me wrong, but I don't hunt, with anything other than my bow if I can help it.
Gotcha. And what kind of bow are you shooting, Matt?
Man, I've been a Matthews guy. That was actually my first purchase when I signed my deal. I hadn't even signed my deal yet, but my agent, told me, hey man, if you need a few dollars, I'm not going to charge you nothing for it. And of course, that sounded good to me. So I went to Old English. I don't know if Dusty's ever been there or not, but
absolutely.
Yeah, buddy. Went to Old English, picked up my first, I think it was a Conquest XL or some, I don't know. I've got so many damn Matthews now, but, man, they've been great partners, for me personally and the foundation. And, of course, Buck Commander, the whole nine. I mean, they're an incredible company, and there's a lot of good bow companies out there, but I'll tell you, man, those guys are phenomenal. I'm actually shooting the no cam right now, which has been kind of fun for the last season or two to, test that sucker out. But man, I love every bow. I've got the Liberty bow. It's a little 20-inch axle to axle. Damn things are half an inch from touching when I'm at full draw. I got a 33.5-inch draw, so I shoot a lot of traditional. I never put sights on a bow. I shot purely instinctive until I got my Matthews at age 22. So my dad's a bowyer. He can cut a stave and go out and carve up a bow and have you shooting in a day. Does all of his own footed shafts. He makes all of his, Port Orford cedar and, all that. I mean, I grew up, and luckily I can't do any of that stuff worth a damn, but they can and they do. And, I've been blessed to be able to, fling a lot of arrows in a lot of cool ways.
All right, very cool. What kind of arrows are you shooting out of your mouth, Matthews?
Contractually at times, Easton, of course. But, I've had Carbon Express, I've been shooting those for a long time. Again, I don't think there's any. And if you looked at my quiver at times, people get sick when they see it. I may have 3 different brands. but I put a number on every one of them suckers, and if it says number 1, it will be effective. I may not find every one of them, but if it's got a number 1 on it, it's pretty damn good.
Right on. Yeah. Any particular broadhead you like to tip your arrow with?
Yeah. And again, there's so many, but I've had some really good success with the G5. Montek's got, I've had a lot of great success with them and with the Muzzies for a long time. And so I would put both of those in a category of, always feel comfortable, always feel like I can get it done. And I say that from the standpoint of all around broadhead in terms of turkey, deer, small game, whatever it is, man. I cannot change. I don't have to change my setup. And I like that in a broadhead, right? I shoot an elk with a G5, right? I can shoot a turkey with it. It doesn't matter what it is. I can just slap that sucker on there and roll. But I will tell you this. I went to a broadhead for turkey season. It's got blades, 3 blades, and they actually got a little screw in them. You can replace the blades if they break. The ferrule's got like a cone-shaped nose. And that's the greatest turkey broadhead I've ever shot. And that thing is damn effective and damn accurate. With turkey season right around the corner, guys are already sending me pictures. It's making me sick. I can't wait to get back out there and start that season. That's one of my favorites. Magnus Bullhead.
Bullhead, yeah, it's a bullhead.
Magnus Bullhead, yep.
Yeah, I tell you, you know what I love about them? You shoot them into a pillow, does absolutely no damage. So you can really shoot these things and tune them to your bow. And, I'm taking 40-yard shots and knocking necks, So, that. And by the way, I don't do that, typically. But these things fly true. You can replace the ferrule. That thing's never going to break on you. I've thrown them through all the rock and everything and all the ledge out here in the Northeast. You can replace the blades, in 5-10 seconds. It's a great broadhead. It's durable. They fly true, and they are highly effective.
Very cool. Yeah, Matt, I'm no small guy myself, and you're I'm assuming you're 6'3" I don't know what you weigh, but you're a big fella. What's your preference as far as hunting style? Ground blind, tree stand, hang on. What's your preference?
Yeah, I'm a lock on guy, and I want to be at least 20 because at 6'5" and I'm still pushing the 300, 305 barrier. I got a lot of things going against me, and especially if we're filming or doing something else. It's there's a big grizzly bear up there, and they typically can find you unless you can get up high enough. And so I like to get up high. I love hanging sets. I may get as much enjoyment, going out and finding the perfect setup, and that to me that's that's as rewarding hands down as the actual hunt. So ground blinds. Not a big fan of them. I don't feel like I'm actually hunting. I do have, some great elevated, tower blinds and things of that nature. And man, they are a great tool to utilize for different purposes and different areas and different setups. But, for me, man, I want to get a lock on up there, as high as I can get it and, be able to get a full view of what I'm looking at.
Right on. So let's get in. We've checked in your gear. As far as bow and tree stand, what kind of camouflage are you wearing these days?
I'll tell you, during the turkey season, I'm a mossy oak kind of guy. That's just always been, obsession's been my pattern. It's just, kind of what I've always worn. Real tree during the whitetail season, and it just depends on where I'm at and what pattern I'm going with. Under Armour's got a great, Western pattern that I like a lot when I'm out west. But again, I tell you, man, when I grew up, I wasn't a camo guy. I was a Carhartt. So,
right.
Whatever that pattern is, that I'll tell you, man, I've seen too many guys pull out much bigger deer on a regular basis than I ever have. And that's been their pattern. So I think it works.
Right.
Right on. Sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. So we got into your gear and what you wear and what you got going as far as bow and tree stand and camo patterns. And let's get into a memorable hunt. And I want you to tell us from the beginning kind of where we're going and what time of year it was, and kind of if you can refer to a date and get into a memorable hunt. And I'll kind of walk through it with you.
Yeah, I guess the first one that comes to mind is one that was a full 360. Let's see here. We are in 2017, so this is 16, 15. In 2014, we are at the E3 Ranch in Kansas and Missouri. It's Adam LaRoche's property. For any of those guys that have, watched Buck Commander or seen any of those episodes, you've seen his ground. He's managed that to the nth degree, and it's always a fun hunt when we get together out there. And we were in a set one morning, a little bit of a valley that cut through with some good timber, a little bit of a swamp to the south of us, and to the north of us was a ridge that came off of some tillable ground that was up top. And we also had tillable ground to the south of us as well. And we were in kind of a natural funnel. We were sitting just off of a mowed path, and we had it all figured out. We knew that in the morning these deer were going to come from basically, I'd say the southeast, and they were going to work their way, north and west, right? And we're up there, and it was kind of warm when we first got up. And I remember taking off my jacket, and I want to say this is early November, so peak conditions, for the most part, a little bit warm. Definitely the rut was happening. It wasn't full tilt. And I can remember having a good feeling about that morning. And I'm kind of chatting with the camera guy. And as I'm turned back over my left shoulder talking to him, the one place that we knew a deer we never had to worry about looking at, I can see horns coming through the woods. And he's coming off that ridge. And I remember telling him, I said, hey, man, I think we got a shooter coming. And, of course, he's looking the way I'm kind of looking, but he's not seeing what I'm seeing. And sure enough, he locks on it, and he can zoom in. And, of course, he's like, man, that's definitely a shooter. And as that deer's coming, I had an opportunity to shoot him before he got out in front of me. But there was a couple twigs, and I knew where he was going. He was going to be broadside right in the sweet spot, right? So I'm going to let this thing develop. And as I'm watching this deer, it dawns on me that this is the 9 of diamonds. This is a deer that Adam LaRoche had been watching for probably 3 seasons. And he had been hunting that deer as hard as anybody could hunt a deer for that season. And here that sucker is in a place that he should have never come from, because we got all the answers, right? And he is going to be standing at 30 yards, and that son of a gun comes out and stands at 33 yards, basically, on the dot.
Wow.
And is perfectly broadside, doesn't have a care in the world. So before I finish this one, let me just tell you the critical error that one makes at times, and you kill yourself reliving these moments. Because this is not a feel-good story until the very end. So that deer came over my left shoulder. I had turned my body talking to my camera guy. Like a lot of guys, you don't want to screw it up, so you tend to do far less than what you know you can do in those moments. And instead of getting my feet turned the other way, I just twisted my upper body. That was mistake number one. Form is everything, as every guy knows that shoots anything. So not that you can't make the shot. You make it probably 7 or 8 times out of 10 every time, right where you want it. But I didn't turn my feet. That was my first mistake. And twisted my upper body. I drew down on him. Now, my second mistake came in the fact that this deer had rubbed out a spot or had been, stuck by another buck or whatever happened. He had a bald spot just north of the kill zone. And it was plain as day. And I think subconsciously I must have focused on that, because when I released, that arrow center punched that bald spot.
Gotcha.
And the minute I released that arrow, I knew that sucker was high. I mean, I'm on film saying hi as it's impacting. It's one of them moments that, you'll never get back, and you just pray to God it works out. So we watched the film. I mean, that deer, when I hit him, he took off like a scalded dog. I can see he's carrying the arrow, but I'm shooting a full shaft, and it's got a good penetration, but it's sticking out both sides. And he runs probably 40 yards, stops, and then kind of walks off into the timber down through that swamp. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we replay the video 4 million times. We waited probably 2 hours, got out of the stand about 10:30, went back into camp, hemmed and hawed over it all day, decided not to go in that night, went back the next morning with an army. And, of course, Adam's my biggest fan at this point. He wants this deer dead, and he wants to get his hands on it, right?
Right.
So we get to the spot where we last saw him, and we got some blood. It's not great. We trail him all the way through the swamp. We get to the other side. We come up through the thickest, gnarliest hedge apple, junk, just trash cedars that you could possibly come through. And we find where he bedded down. And he was losing it on both sides. But when that sucker got up, like a lot of stories in, man, there was not one drop. And we feel as though we bumped him. We saw some horns running. We didn't know whose they were, right? I mean,
right.
But it wasn't far after we found where he bedded. And that, for me, was the end of the story. Now, that same afternoon, that afternoon, after looking forever, we had to jump on a plane. We did a USO tour with Willie and his brother, Jep, and a whole bunch of guys. Man, it was unbelievable experience over in Afghanistan and Greece and Italy and Germany. And, man, it was crazy. But the whole time, I just couldn't get that hunt out of my mind. Fast forward, I believe it was 2 seasons later, Adam killed that deer and finally put that story to rest, which they got that on tape. And that was just a relief for me. He wasn't what he was when I stuck him, but he was still a heck of a deer. And that hunt I'll never forget.
That's crazy. With a good ending.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you, man, in my mind, that deer was dead, but that you know how that works out.
Oh yeah. It just makes for that's bow hunting for sure.
Yes, it is.
Definitely is. Very cool. Excellent story. All right, Matt, I've got 10 rapid fire questions for you. And I did not prep you for these, so hope you're ready. They usually come out better when I don't prep you for these anyway.
Is there a scoring system?
Yeah, I'm going to keep score over here, so I know you're a competitive guy, and I'll let you know what your score is at the end.
All right, let's do it.
All right. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Oh, my goodness. None. You know what? Go out there, live it up, do it how you do it, and love every second of it. I got nothing I can impart on anybody other than, you got to love it. That's it.
All right. Very cool. We have these things as hunters that we like to hunt with. Whether they're good luck charms or meaningful items, or maybe they actually make you a better hunter. I don't know what that is, but what's that one thing for you, other than your weapon, what's that one thing for you that you have to hunt with?
I got a release that for some reason, whenever I've got a million releases, but I've got one release in particular. If it's not with me, I really honestly don't feel confident going out in the woods. And it's the dumbest thing in the world. I'm not a superstitious guy, but for me, it's a release, man. It's something about that release that brings me good luck.
Yep. Gotcha. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
How much time we got? This is only one response.
You get one. Sorry.
My biggest pet peeve would be, people in a way, but more to the point. There's doers and then there's talkers. I like doers. I've had enough of the talkers.
Gotcha. I like that. That's a very good answer. All right. How old are you today, Matt?
38.
You're 38. All right. Knowing what you know today about life in general, what would you tell to the 16-year-old Matt?
Put more time in the outdoors, man. I love the outdoors growing up, but man, I missed a lot of opportunities being an idiot. If you're a young person today, with the resources that are out there and the things that you can get into and do through the outdoors, man, there's no better time to grow up and enjoy the outdoors than right now.
Very cool. All right, you meet a stranger at a hunting convention somewhere in the world, and they strike up a conversation with you. They ask you what you do for a living. What do you say?
Self-employed.
Self-employed. All right. And that's where it ends? That's the end of the conversation?
Yeah. Hopefully, until we get to know each other.
Gotcha. All right. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, man, I had this is terrible, and I don't usually do this, but I had an everything bagel with strawberry cream cheese. Man, that makes me soft. And I did splurge for a coffee roll at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, and I typically don't do that because I don't need another one of those.
Gotcha. Strawberry cream cheese on an everything bagel. That's the first time we've ever had that answer. I'll have to note that down. Very cool. All right. Okay, you get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It could be anywhere, be in Massachusetts, wherever. It's a blank canvas. What would you put on it?
every incriminating photo that I've got of people that other people would like to see.
Very nice.
I don't know. I've collected a lot of good moments from over the years, and at some point it'd be nice to release those. And I guess if you're going to do it, a billboard would be as good as any place, right?
Excellent. And I would assume they might involve some of your old teammates.
Oh, for 100%, man. Yes,
Excellent.
sir.
Very cool. All right. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops in your head and why?
Oh, the first person that pops into my mind. Man, I've got a friend of mine who I've been fortunate enough to see him, go through some amazing things in life. He's a businessman. He's a guy that, picked himself up from the very beginning and did it the hard way. So those are the kind of people I like, man. I really do. I got a friend of mine back in Ohio that, we reclaim a lot of old barns, and he'd be the other guy that, man, I learned so much from these guys. They're great teachers. They're great mentors. And, when I think of these guys, and these guys aren't, big name guys, but they've done well for themselves, and they put everything into every day, and they love what they do. I mean, to me, that's the epitome of success. It doesn't have to do with, bank accounts or notoriety or any of that stuff, man. I get a kick out of being around people that love life and attack it every day.
That's awesome. I love that answer. All right. What's a typical day in your life look like?
Man, you know what? I like to get up early. I like to get in my office and try to get a good jump on things before I start fielding phone calls. And then, I'm managing projects and, working on things with different companies and such that we've started and trying to line up hunts. And I've got the ADD approach to life. You don't just open up one door, you open about 50 at one time. So you always got something you can dip in and out of. And I like to stay busy, each and every day and line things up and then knock them down.
Very cool. All right. And what does a typical deer hunting day in your life look like?
Well, once I get the okay from the mothership, man, I tell you, for me, I'll go back to, I did go home for the muzzleloader season in January in Ohio. I believe it was the 5th through the 7th through the 10th. I can't remember, but it was something around those days. And, the typical deer hunt for me, man, it's get out really early, get situated, get settled, try not to freeze to death or, fall asleep, before the action starts. And then, sit all day. I love sitting all day, man. I like to ride the hole and, stay in it from start to finish and get out sore, but, with a lot of great memories and a lot of things to put on the rewind when I get back into camp, and then eat like hell and enjoy a few beers before doing it all over again.
Very, very cool. All right. That's 10, Matt. You did great. I'm going to give you 100%. So you get an A+.
Thank God. All right. Let me know where I'm at on the leaderboard.
You're leading the pack right now.
All right. Feel good about this.
Yep. Yeah, you're doing well. All right. So that's fantastic, Matt. And thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us where we can find out more about you? You mentioned your website, but could you give us that again, where we can reach out, social media, websites, phone numbers, if they want to get more involved with your foundation or anything else you got going on?
Yeah, man. So mattlight72.com, you can find pretty much everything you need there. I mean, links to, the social media end of it. I've never been on social media, and maybe that's not a good thing to say, but I do, work closely with all of our people, and I ask them to put things out there on my behalf. But we got a lot of great information about the Light Foundation, the work that we do, ways that you can contact me through, our network and our group. We've got a great vodka company, Keel Vodka, for those that want a nice, light, refreshing. I won't do the whole spiel, but it's a great alternative to beer, and it's a good, healthy alternative. So we're rolling out 10 new states this year, so you can check out Keel Vodka, and we got a lot of cool events and things coming up with that. And then really through Buck Commander and some of those other things that I've been involved with, and some of the great people I work with. I think there's some content and things out there, but definitely check out mattlight72.com and any information about the foundation, the work we do in our camps and things of that nature, how to volunteer or jump in if you're so inclined. We'd love to have you.
Very, very cool. Excellent, Matt. Matt, it's been a pleasure and an absolute honor. And I'm a big Patriots fan from way back, so it's been priceless for me. And thank you for your insights into the hunting world and sharing your life story with us. It's stuff that I don't think a lot of people get to hear sometimes, and I think our audience is going to eat it up.
Well, listen, man, I tell you, it's been fun, and I wish you guys a a great 2017. It's hard to believe that the spring season is upon us, and if I'm like everybody else, then I'm sure I'm probably on the low end of the spectrum. But for all your listeners, gearing up for all your hunts and everything you're lining up here for this season, I wish you guys all the best, continued success, shoot straight, have fun, and enjoy every minute of it, man.
That was quite a talk with Matt. He's a very interesting guy, very upbeat, high energy, and I really like what he's got going on with his foundation. I'm hoping to get involved with that some more and help him promote what's going on through our media channels that we've developed here at the Big Buck Registry, and hoping that we can get down to his camp. And it's right near where you live, and I was amazed at how many things you two knew about because you both dealt with it growing up.
Right. It's very unique to talk to somebody that's farm and family life related. And I know the area where he's from, and he knows the general area where I'm from. It's pretty cool.
It brought back a memory when we were bear hunting with Greg this past season, and Matt had mentioned how he got strong working on the farm, working with concrete, doing haying and all that stuff. And when we had just finished the hunt, we'd come up over the hill, and you just decided for whatever reason to grab me and lift me up over your head with your arm, and it blew my mind how strong you really are when it comes down to it. And I'm like, that guy just picked me up, a 240-pound male. Picked me up with one arm. I was like, holy smokes. I thought I was a strong guy. I thought how you did that, I have no idea, but it must have something to do with the strength that you developed on the farm like Matt did.
Yeah, it's not really a bunch of weightlifting or anything like that, but it seems like every day I'm around something that's heavy. And for instance, I threw about 20 bales of straw today. Straw's not real heavy, but it's just a physical activity. And I just grabbed them, a bale in each hand, and threw them up in the mound out of my truck.
Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, it's something that,
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
The youth that's coming up and going to be hunters, future conservationists, and land stewardists and managers of the herd, we got to take time and educate them. And right now is a time where you're starting to think about getting stuff set up for the spring and summer months for your deer herd, as far as food plots and all that. Well, take time and get a youth to participate with you, not only from the beginning. A lot of people just show them the hunting aspect of it. They really don't show them how they go out to the woods and prep the stand locations and all that. There's a lot more to it than just, going bow hunting or going shotgun or rifle hunting. You need to get involved if you're ordering seed for your food plots, or you're ordering fertilizer for your food plots, or even if you're doing some kind of native grass vegetation type area for the bedding or deer herd habitat. Get involved when it comes to how do you order it, how do you prep the order that you're putting in at your local co-op or wherever you order your seed from, or seed rep or whoever it is. But get them to either one ride along with you when you go there to place your order, or have them around when you make the phone call and let them listen to how you discuss to that person of what you need and what you got going on. If you're going to pull soil samples and do some soil preparation, disking, field cultivating, running a 3-point tiller through your food plots, get them out there. If nothing else, let them stand on the sidelines and get that visual education. That way, when they start to get a little older and they're able to do things on their own, that they have a general idea of how it all works. And that's something that if we all participate in taking a couple youth hunters out to the woods and showing them step by step how it all works, it'll better their odds of being more successful in land conservation and building habitat and prepping for the season.
I love that tip. It's always in the back of my head. I'm always trying to, what is this show all about? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I think ultimately we try to keep people going into the woods that have already gone there by giving them some motivation and letting them know that, there are everybody is out there, they're hunting, and sharing their experiences with them. And then there are the people that are kind of on the fence, the people that want to do some hunting. Hopefully we're inspiring them. And then as this medium grows into the space where it's growing, where all the younger folks are hanging out, well, the millennials, whether it's on all the social media. And naturally, I'm not a social media guy, but I recognize the importance of where people are hanging out who are part of that younger generation. We're trying to get them into hunting itself and get outside and enjoy all the aspects that hunting brings, whether it's bonding or camaraderie or enjoying nature or conservation, whatever it is. All I've ever seen from hunting is good. Now, I'm hoping that somehow, some way, this show reaches those people in all facets. The older folks, the people that are kind of on the fence, the people that go hunting every day just need a little more inspiration, or the younger people. That's what this show is really all about. And I did some deep thinking over the last couple of weeks about what this show really means.
Yeah, for sure. You just got to get them involved and get them away from the gaming systems or the iPhones or whatever they're involved with. Get them out to the outdoors and show them the way.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Dusty, this has been another fantastic show. Enjoyed hanging out with Matt. And where can we find you when you're not hanging out on the mic with me?
You can shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Facebook, Chubby Tines Outdoors, @ChasingAntler on Instagram and Twitter. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Very cool. Yes, you can reach me by emailing me first and foremost, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. You can come over to and join the crowd over at the Facebook page if you're into social media. There are about 250,000 plus diehard deer hunting fans hanging out over there, and that's bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook. We also have an Instagram, Twitter. We have a Google Plus account and a YouTube account. And if you'd like to listen to this show, you can always listen to it on iTunes. And if you are listening to it on iTunes, would you please subscribe and review? And if you subscribe, you'll get this show delivered with notification every single week as the new show comes out. And if you want, you can go to YouTube and actually not only see the videos we've done for other things, but you can actually get a video recording of the audio and actually listen to the show on YouTube now, where it gets automatically transcribed into a video so you can hear this entire show. You can also find us on Stitcher and Blubrry, and I think that's about it for where you can listen to the show. And Dusty, I think that's a wrap.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott. And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.